thank County Executive Latimer for taking the trip all the way up here. Here he is in Peekskill today, and by the time he's done with all legislators, every district of Westchester will be covered.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm the new kid in the room, George Latimer, Westchester County Executive for not quite 10 months. And as John said, this is one of a series of outreach meetings that we're doing all around the county. The second thing may seem a little obvious, but I think it's worth pointing out. You're watching disagreement in Washington, D.C. and Albany that we've never seen before. The kind of dispute, the kind of nastiness is unprecedented. John's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. He's the head of the Republicans on the legislature. I guess since I'm the county executive, I'm the most prominent Democrat. We disagree on a number of issues. I don't have any problem with his disagreement. He doesn't have any problem with my disagreement. And we're sitting here together. We're sitting here because we have a responsibility to try to work together and to try to find solutions. And where we can be on the same side of the page, we will. Where we can't be on the same side of the page, we fight for our beliefs. But we don't have to be enemies. And I think that's what will help us solve our problems in Westchester County. The issue of what happens on a piece of land and whether or not it's the right use for a particular site belongs to the local government. This isn't passing the ball to somebody else. This is home rule. If the county had that authority, then we would step in on 1,000 different projects where we like or don't like something happening.
A couple of things. Number one, we've got over 1,000 people who signed a petition against this. And part of the biggest problem is we're hearing from you, we're hearing from everybody, we have no say in this. Except everyone is pointing at everybody else. And you're supposed to be our leadership, you're supposed to be representing us. We know that the county, in addition to the city, has close ties with the organization trying to put a homeless shelter within 250 feet of 2 school bus stops.
It's not that nobody makes a decision, it's that if this homeless shelter is going to be activated, it will take the Common Council of Peekskill to agree to do it. That's where the decision has to be made if this is going to happen. If we don't have the authority to make it, we're not passing the buck. We just don't have the authority to make it.
The only problem I see there is that the mayor of Peekskill, under Rainey, said that he was. So we went to the city. The city says we're waiting on the county. The state says we're waiting on the county. The county says it's the city. So nobody.
I'll clarify in writing. We'll get to the heart of what you want. I'll clarify with the city in writing that they are not waiting on the county for anything. That it is, if the city gets an application to use the site for homeless, that it's their decision to make for rezoning. If there was no rezoning necessary, then it wouldn't be a city issue. But if there is a rezoning, it is. If what has been stated by anybody that they're waiting for the county, I'm going to do the same thing as I did with this. I'm going to clarify it and make it very clear in writing that there is no pending decision by the county, so that it's clear in your mind and everybody else's mind what's the decision line and who's in that decision line.
What we find out is that the homeless shelter is very well connected with City Hall. There's a lot of conflict of interest. People in our neighborhood do not feel represented in City Hall. To the fact that the mayor and the councilwoman have already signed a petition supporting the project before they knew anything about it.
I think a lot of us are reaching out to you for help because there are 3 major players, not only on the board of Peekskill in some way, shape, or form, that are also tied to the board of CHOP.
Right.
So as residents, we really feel that maybe we're not getting the full honesty. And that's, I think, where we really would like your help.
Well, we can't make people be honest. We will dive into this a little bit more, as the county executive mentioned. We'll get people around the table who make the decisions. Unfortunately, none of them are here today.
When you look at the financing of CHOPS, I think the latest 990 in 2016, something like $700,000 of their money on an operating basis every year comes from the county. The balance comes from HUD and the Veterans Administration. And in terms of their fundraising, it's a very little portion of their budget. So we recognize that there's no direct decision making from the county, but does it concern the county a little bit that it is effectively financing an organization and will be financing operations in a neighborhood where the people who are paying that money don't want it there.
And I'll answer the first question, portion of your question is legitimate. The money that this organization and any organization gets from the county is contractual. It is, they provide a certain service and we pay for that service. And that service involves some federal reimbursement or state reimbursement. Every one of these things is a bit different. So we do have quote unquote financial leverage. So to that extent you're correct, which is why brokering a meeting of all the people around the table makes sense. Now, this obviously is a decision that's not a day-to-day decision. You've got a neighborhood that's outraged over the possibility of the changing of a location. So that makes a reason for us to get involved to try to broker some arrangement. Since I don't know any of the details about how the building was potentially financed for purchase, all of that's unknown to me. I don't think John knows it either. We will try to determine what we can do. If we have a meeting on this topic, we'll try to do it at Peekskill City Hall because we know the people that are interested in it don't want to schlep down to White Plains for a meeting. What I would probably suggest is that you distill yourself into a committee of a certain number of people to walk in a room, because this session is to get it out of your system. If we're sitting around the table to have a discussion, we can't have 35 people, doing this and that. So if you do have a subsection of you that represents the leadership of the neighborhood, by all means, identify what that is. Whenever this meeting comes up, John, I'm sure will inform you. I'll talk to the mayor, whatever, I'll talk to the mayor. And yeah, well, I'll tell them we're going to have a meeting. Then you can tell them the logistics.
Okay.
I'll tell them we're going to have a meeting. That's going to happen.
Legislator Testa, how are you?
Good
It was
morning.
a good meeting here today. I enjoyed George Latimer, the county executive. I think a lot of good questions and a lot of good issues were discussed. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the county executive for taking the time to come up here to Peekskill. He left it up to me on where we had this public forum. I thought this would be a perfect location. Lou Lanza has always been great to us and providing the space, home style with the pastries and all. So, and to have the public come out on a Saturday morning that is not very nice out, the rain and the wind, for them to come in the numbers that they did was very, very important. I thought it was a very productive morning, and the county executive did a great job of answering people's questions.
So Kathleen, what was your impression with coffee with the county exec today?
I'm glad I came. I think it's an important issue. I live less than a block away from the proposed relocation of the homeless shelter. I'm concerned. I've been a lifelong resident of Peekskill, and this was a surprise to me. I've only learned about this about 6 months ago, and I'm concerned about the impact it's going to have on our neighborhood.
Did you feel that the county exec addressed the issues today?
I believe that he addressed some of the issues, and I'm looking forward to that he's going to broker a meeting with both of the sides, because I think that has failed so far, in the past. Because CHOPS had their own meetings, but it was all structured and almost, almost, I feel like it was almost rigged to accommodate their wishes and not really hear the residents' concerns.
It was really good for you to show up today, and you had a pretty pertinent question that you asked to the county executive. Where were you actually going with that question?
Well, it's pretty clear that the county is the primary source of funding, and if the county is closing down shelters, he should tell us why. And if they have problems with security, the multiple emergency calls, then those same problems would be multiplied up here. But my main point was that if the county is closing any of its shelters, then that puts the pressure on, maybe they're relying upon the expectation that Peekskill is expanding. And, we have a moral obligation to take care of our homeless, Peekskill. We don't have a moral obligation to take care of White Plains, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon's homeless. And most of these people are being shipped up. And I think that will all come out when the facts come out through FOIL requests and other.
So it was never brought out what type of shelter this was. It was always of my mind that it was a drop-in shelter, not a continuous living shelter. When you were on the council, were you aware of that?
No, we did know that it was certified for substance abusers, not for sex offenders, and certainly not for children.
And as far as it being placed on Washington Street, which is a busy area, would that have ever been your consideration in the past or the future?
I think, as far as we go, I think we would have knocked it down immediately. And we would have calmed everybody down right away and said, we're not for it, right? As a council person, mayor, you want to stand up and say, listen, I'm here for the community, I'm here for the people of Peekskill, and and you want to defend the rights for those that pay taxes and have homes here, and worry about their safety for the kids and safety for the neighborhoods and stuff like that. So that's really key.
Up and about with Peekskill United is at the Factoria today, and we had a spirited interview with George Latimer at Have Coffee with the County Exec. Also with him was John Testa. And it seemed to get rather heated in there, but the County Exec handled it very well. I know that a lot of questions were asked, and I've got to say that one of the questions that was very pertinent that got the County Exec to make a statement was the one that our very own Bob Sullivan brought up about the budget. Bob, just reiterate on that a little bit.
Well, when I asked the county executive and the issue, he was very clear, and we all understand that the county does not have the direct decision-making with respect to the homeless shelter. But they fund it to the tune of about $700,000 a year. Plus you have HUD and the Veterans Administration fund that. And so, given that, he was able to react to that, and I think very favorably he said that he is going to try and broker a deal with city officials and with CHOP, trying to get a round table, sit them down, and do something about it. So I think it's very positive that he recognizes the city doesn't have a direct role in this, but they hold the purse strings. So he's got a lot of juice in this thing. And I thought the county executive was really great. He came in very bipartisan, very matter of fact. He said it the way it was, and I thought it was a very good forum. A lot of questions got heated. There's a lot of emotions on this thing, but I felt it was important that everybody had to understand where the money's coming from. So the county is funding it to $700,000, and they're putting it in somebody's neighborhood where people don't want it. So he did make a concession. He understands people don't want it in that neighborhood, and he's going to try and broker a deal. And we look forward to him getting involved in the process. I think it's very positive.
I think when he talked about brokering a deal and bringing people to the table, it was quite obvious that he took a lead on this, aside from the council and the mayor of Peekskill. How do you feel?
I think it makes a big statement that he's willing to have people sit down, negotiate what's going on, and it's more than our own local officials have done, which is key, because you have local officials here that people voted for to represent the people, and they're not there. They're absent. They're not saying anything. They should be out there saying, "Hey, listen, I'm going to reach out to the people and say I'm here to try to help the people solve this. Try to negotiate. Let's sit down, have a meeting with people, representatives of the neighborhood, and CHOP, and then we can figure something out." But that's not happening. And when that's not happening, this is what you have: a lot of people that are upset. They feel that they're getting a runaround, and then on top of it, CHOP is not really honest with their answers. They're not coming forward and saying, listen, you want transparency, this is what's going on. You don't see that, and that's a big problem right now, and I think that's why a lot of people are upset, a lot of people are angry. You have over 1,000 people that signed petitions, and that you may dismiss them now, but later on that's going to come back to haunt you in a big, bad way. You know what I mean? So, that's my opinion.
Lewis, how do you think the meeting went? How do you think it was conducted by Legislator Testa and County Exec Latimer?
It was kind of like Peekskill United, because you got the Democrat, Republican getting together, talking, amicable to each other, to the community about what the issue is. He says, I understand that the community has no issues with a homeless shelter. They just have an issue of where they're planning on putting it. Sure. And that's what I think the mayor and the council are failing to do. They're failing to show leadership and letting everyone know, we understand this is not about the homeless shelter in itself, just about where they plan on putting it. That way, a lot of the people this animosity can help smooth some of that, because that's some of the issues that they're fighting about. And the real issue is the residents, and I spoke to a couple of them after the meeting, they'll say it, I have no issues with the homeless shelter, none at all. We all help, we all, as a community, do things for it, but this is just not the right place for it.
Well, let me just add one more thing too, is that they want to bring this shelter down there. They haven't even they never talked to the community about even bringing it down there. They put $45,000 deposit down. They spent money on plans already. And, it's an insult to the people. They didn't say, hey, how you guys feel about this going in the area? And, so you have a lot of deception going on, I think, and, it's a serious concern. Listen, I mean, the reality is this is going to devalue a neighborhood if this goes there. And then the safety concerns, you have kids going to school down there, you have a school right down the street from there. And, and unfortunately, and not to knock the homeless, there's some great homeless people, and there's, some that have emotional problems and stuff like that. That's just the reality of it. And usually what happens when these people come into the shelter because they have drugs on them and they kick them out to the street, they're going to roam the neighborhood looking for a place to stay or whatever. So, it's going to affect businesses too, because they're going to go into these businesses trying to stay warm or whatever. So it's a big thing, and I think, the city council and mayor really needs to address this to the people. They have to step in and say, listen, we're going to do what we can to help this or negotiate or whatever. And you don't see that right now, and I think that has to be a big thing. If the county executive can step in and say, everybody sit down at the table and let's try to make something work here. And I think that's basically what he said. And hopefully that comes to fruition. So.
One of the things that was conflated a little bit, they had a representative from the school board, Sam North, made the comment that, the school district has a number of homeless children that attend in schools. Well, the type of shelter that we're talking about moving from Water Street is not the type of shelter where you're going to be housing families and children. And, my comment to that's a very interesting statistic, but you want to know something? First time I've ever heard that. None of our local public officials in Peekskill have said, gee, we have this major problem and we have to address a housing issue for families and children in the schools. Because I got news for you, all the people in that room, you're talking about housing for children and families that are displaced. You saw what happened when we had the fire a couple weeks ago. This city went nuts and supported those people to help them out that were put out of their homes. So we're trying to conflate the issues here, and a little bit of moralizing that, gee, you got to understand, again, we feel for all the homeless. We have to do something about it. But homeless children and a homeless shelter for people that are emotionally disturbed or have drug abuse problems, much different. You're really doing apples and oranges. If I could just one last point, which is what I made the county executive. One of the things none of us knew was there's a major security concern where the thing, no matter where it is. Sure. And the county executive said, well, that's just happens with the population. But right now, the city of Peekskill has to bear the cost of those ambulance calls, those police calls. And I suggested to him, if this is a county function, maintaining a shelter, why doesn't the county do more for security and pick up the cost? And he sort of demurred on that and said, well, if I do that, I'm going to have to raise your county property taxes. Okay, then raise the taxes of me and people in Bedford and Armonk and everybody else to solve, because we have a security issue. People get hurt down there, and they're the homeless people that are in the shelter. That's something we all should be worrying about.
Were you satisfied with his response? It seemed like he was saying that if he had to raise the taxes for Peekskill, he'd have to raise the taxes throughout the county for other services that are being rendered, which could be quite expensive.
Whatever is required to maintain security in that area. It is right now a Peekskill police function to do that. They're responsible for it. But remember, that's a facility that was placed there and is being financed by the county, and all these other cities he mentioned, Mount Vernon and Newark and all that, well, all those municipalities are doing the same. If it's a county function, I got no problem with sharing it with the county. But right now, it's exclusively the expense and the responsibility of the city of Peekskill, and I don't think that's really a fair levy on us.
Just to shift gears a little bit here, there was another issue that was brought up there, and that was the closing of Indian Point. Maybe we can just throw that around a little bit and talk about it.
They have over $700,000 in their budget, in their bank account. So why can't they use some of that money towards the security of the area?
Yeah, a security guard or someone that is
Something
more.
like that is not affecting us in taxes,
Yeah.
and we're still paying for it through our tax to the county.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they said expenditures were $700,000
But it's
or
their
not.
budget.
That's their
under
budget.
990. That's
Yeah,
under
so
990.
basically they're spending on their help $700,000 that we know about,
Yeah.
which is a lot of money for, I don't know how many people work down there or are getting paid, but that's a lot of money. And the way it looks to me sometimes is that they make a bigger facility, and now they can add more people, more money. They got more beds. They got like almost $4,000 a person, I think, per month, is it? Per month or per week or whatever, I don't know what it is. But so it almost seems like it's a money thing. You know what I mean? And that's what kind of concerns you a little bit, that they want a bigger place to get more employees and stuff like that. And, and the problem you have is a lot of it is connected to the local party, the Democratic Party, that all these people are involved with. They're taking care of their own. And if you really look deep into it, and I'm not trying to say that's what's going on, but it kind of looks that way. You know what I mean? So.
Okay, just moving ahead just a little bit here and moving forward, but a good point was raised as far as where the money can come from, which is always the issue. What did you think about the discussion about the closing of Indian Point? I mean, it's going to hurt the surrounding area, and of course there's going to be some issues here with Peekskill. You think the county exec addressed it properly in his responses?
I do. I think the county executive was right, spot on. He understands that Buchanan and the Hendrick Hudson School District, which is part of Peekskill and Cortland, are going to bear the burden here. And he's very clear that in terms of other municipalities, and he used the term bellying up to the trough, that's not really appropriate. He's going to advocate with the state to make sure that Buchanan and Hendrick Hudson aren't, I mean, they're bearing the burden. They're the ones that need the aid. And, you know, it's going to impact Peekskill certainly, but not as much as those municipalities. So I think the county executive is very bipartisan and very apolitical. He just says, look, this is the way it is, and we're going to look out for those municipalities first.
I think it was poor planning on the way they did everything with the governor's office by saying we're shutting it down, and there was no real plan in place to say, well, once we shut down, what's going to replace it? What's going to help the schools that are going to lose that kind of money? You have Buchanan that really, I mean, they save so much money on taxes because of them. And now you live in Buchanan, your taxes are probably going to go through the roof because they're trying to make up for the difference that they're losing. So,
I think one of the issues that wasn't brought up at this forum was that at Indian Point you have unspent radioactive rods that's in a quarry, and how are they going to be dealt with, because they can live on to almost 1,000 years and they're sitting in the bottom of a waterbed. So this will become a security issue going forward that should have been brought up, and hopefully that there's a plan in place for securing these rods or moving them out of the area entirely, because it's known to be there, and I think that entity will be amongst us for a while, being careful about this issue.
From what I understand, I mean, I went to one of the meetings when I was on the council, and I think they're responsible for that property. I think, they're going to have to get the rods removed eventually. But even if they do that, that property is going to be dead for 100 years. You're not going to be able to use that property. So from what I understand, there's an account for them to sit there and maintain the property and everything like that, and guard the property with security and stuff like that after they're gone. So it's not going to be no security, but like you said, the property is going to be useless for at least 100 years.
Yeah, I think the county executive mentioned there's a decommissioning company that's
Yeah, that
going to
does it,
basically
correct,
take
yeah.
title to it and control it. So, all in all, I think it's a great forum. John Testa and the county executive shows a lot of bipartisanship, and I also ribbed the county executive a little bit, mentioned that he was actually the head of our ticket on the Independence Party line, so we were running mates, and I mentioned that before, and we had a good laugh about that. But it's true that people have to cross party lines on these issues and solve them, and I think this is a good step in that direction.
And just to add to that, NCG gave a lot of money to community organizations. So I don't know where they're going to find the money to fill that part in, but it's going to be a big absence of the money that they used to put in for all these organizations that do a lot of great things. So, we can find maybe the electricity that's being taken away. We can find maybe some of the money that's being taken away as well. But can we find the assistance that the communities were getting through NTG and all the things that they sponsored? That is still, we still have to see about that.
I mean, I know they always contribute to the police department, to fireworks for back in the celebration days, and they still give money to the community in a lot of different ways, I think, that nobody really sees. So people don't understand how much money, besides all the other things they do, that they're going to lose a lot of community money that gives to a lot of organizations that are good for the community. So
But it requires a bipartisan brain trust to put it together and figure it out, and that's where we are.
Well, it was an interesting session, and a lot was accomplished, but there's a lot still left on the table. This is Bruce Bellum with Up and About with Peekskill United, my associate Bob Sullivan, Joe Torres, and Louis Segura. Thank you.